Wendi Adelson isn't a wolf in sheep's clothing. She's a wolf in wolf's clothing. She doesn't hunt with a pack, and she doesn't wait for the moon to rise. She expects the moon to howl at her. Powerful men orbit her, feeding her protection and opportunity. It's through that same lens that I can confidently say that Wendi met with Sigfredo Garcia directly, not just from the patterns in the call records, but from the timeline at a macro level. From 2006 to 2025, Wendi has consistently placed herself near certain types of people to get certain things. In 2015, Wendi Adelson took a writing class and they were asked to read their assignments out loud, and it was uploaded as a podcast. It's called Writing Class Radio, and I'll be using excerpts from that podcast on this video.
We married when I was in my mid-20s, when I thought I could cheat the system and marry a man I lacked passionate love for because, hey, didn't that die anyway during marriage? I saw his intellect and big heart and thought he would make a wonderful father for my children. Our marriage dissolved after the children arrived, as the loneliness of being married to someone that didn't view me as an equal crept in. I do believe he loved me the best way he knew how. I mean, he didn't like fiction, so why read my novel? It was logic, not a lack of love.
The way Wendi comes off with this is like she's rational and self-aware, but ultimately blameless for this. So when she says she thought she could cheat the system and marry a man she liked passionate love for, she frames herself as cynical, frames this as cynical, but really it's very calculated. And she presents her younger self as believing that she could outsmart traditional expectations of what marriage is. So it kind of like distances herself from any like emotional attachment with Dan. And in addition to that, she's making it seem like a inevitable outcome by saying that, and it's not any kind of nefarious motive there. And then she says, I saw his intellect and big heart and thought he would make a wonderful father for my children. Now this is, if you listen to the whole podcast, this is the only time she really speaks positively of him, but it's really it is transactional, because she only speaks positively of him when she's reducing him to a list of attributes suitable for procreation. She's not looking for a partner in life. So the wonderful father is really crazy for her to say that, because it's the complete opposite of what inevitably happened, where allegedly through her actions, her children were robbed of a father. So when she goes on to say the loneliness of being married to someone that didn't view me as an equal crept in, this is where it starts for her to play the victim here. And then she reframes the failure of the marriage not as the lack of passionate love, but rather as a matter of respect and equality. And this is really crazy how she's able to do this and just get the sympathy out of you if you're not really paying attention. And it's no longer about her poor choice or her calculated choice, but now it's about Dan Markel's ongoing failure to treat her properly. And when she says, I do believe he loved me the best way he knew how, this is like super condescending. It's probably the most condescending part of this whole statement. And she positions herself as like graciously absolving Dan of the blame for not loving her correctly. He was born inept at loving her the way she needed to be loved. He never understood that. This is just above his head. So it just reinforces this weird hierarchy she established. And it's like, she's the emotionally intelligent one who can analyze and forgive this man's limited capabilities. And he didn't like fiction, so why read my novel? It was logic, not a lack of love. That's weird. It's I don't know what it is, but it's like it's his basic lack of understanding of Wendi and the fact that, not the fact, but it's comes off as he just was never supportive of her. And so usually your partner, your wife or husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, if you're with someone, they should appreciate and value your interests. And it's like the reason he was unsupportive of her is because it was just logical for him to not read her novel, because he's just unsupportive anyway. This woman is like, I saw a comment once that said that Wendy is transparently deceptive. Wendy is transparently deceptive, and that's exactly what I see out of this. But if you put everything in order chronologically, from what she said here, it would start off that she met a man who had the intellect that for her to procreate with. So she thought she could cheat the system, marry a man that she lacked passionate love for, in order for her to procreate with him. So after she was done procreating with him, the marriage dissolved. But before the marriage dissolved, Wendy wrote that novel. And that makes me think that the novel is part of what Wendy wanted to use in order to not only divorce Dan, but to make him look really bad when they went to court for their divorce.
Sherry, thank you so much. Well, human trafficking is a widespread issue going on right here in our backyard. We have with us this morning clinical professor at Florida State University's College of Law, Wendi Adelson, with a book and hear more to discuss about human trafficking. And again, like we said, just it's a widespread issue that it's hard to believe it is happening right here in the United States. Welcome, Wendi.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. So before we get into it and get into your book, how is it that these women get here to the United States?
Kind of funny that there's a broken TV, but look at the cover of Wendy's book.
I mean, he didn't like fiction, so why read my novel? It was logic, not a lack of love.
It's Wendy, with her hand up like she's defending herself from being punched or something. This is from Wendy's testimony during Charlie's trial that talks about her divorce.
Okay, and he accuses you in this filing of breaching the marital settlement agreement in various ways, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and committing a fraud upon the court by omitting the $200,000 in assets from your financial affidavit.
That's what he was alleging.
And asked the court to sanction you.
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay, so again, you're both seeking the court to sanction each other. I mean, them's fighting words and lawyer terms, right?
Well, I was filing a motion to enforce a settlement agreement, so I don't think that's really fighting words. That's just asking the court to complete what it already said it wanted to do.
Okay. And on page 379, Dan suggests that the court send a strong message about your malfeasance by awarding him the entirety of the undisclosed assets of over $200,000, right?
That is what he asked for.
Okay, and then on March 10th of 2014, on page 437, do you respond with your motion to dismiss the former husband's counter motion to enforce the marital settlement agreement?
Dan Markel wanted Wendy held in contempt and the $200,000 Wendy omitted and the $120,000 that he owed her for the house. If Wendy is found to be in contempt, her law license would be in jeopardy and she would be out $320,000. Why would Wendy take the $200,000? Is it because maybe Wendy felt like Dan made her lose money on something? In a normal book deal, the publisher pays the author in advance and pays them royalties, and they're responsible for the editing, the design, and remember that cover photo? Who took that picture? Harvey. Anyway, everything in a normal book deal will be taken care of by the publisher. The distribution, the cost of everything, the distribution, the marketing, and the author will own their money from sales. They're not buying the copies. Now, in Wendy's situation, it's the complete opposite. Wendy is directly paying the publisher just to print her novel per copy. She's bearing the cost of everything, the distribution, everything. She's paying for her own books.
The novel I wrote about my client's stories had just been chosen as the common read for all first-year students at FSU.
It may sound like Wendy's bragging here, as if all these students bought her book, but really she bought the book and they got it for free. Here's the math on that. At Carolina Academic Press, that publisher would charge an author between $10 to $15 per book. Florida State, in the year that Wendy had this happen, there were 6,021 students. So Wendi had to pay between $60,000 and $90,000 of her own money to print that book to give it away to students at Florida State University. Between Dan Markel and Wendi, Dan Markel is the only person that could have an arrangement like that for Wendi because he's a tenured professor. Dan Markel used his position to actively promote Wendi's book, knowing that Wendi had to pay out of pocket for each copy. Wendi has selective amnesia when it comes to the motions being filed in her divorce settlement. It's because she knows that the motions that Dan were filing would be detrimental to her career and she wasn't going to win. And it gave her the sense of urgency to have Dan taken out. And it shows because the very next day, Wendi went to Miami with Jeff Lacasse and had that double date with Charlie and Katie, the one with Sigfredo and Luis watching from a distance. I'm going to skip past the homicide on the timeline and talk about what Wendi did afterwards in order to protect herself.
I started my own immigration practice, and I just signed up to do a 1-year clerkship at the Federal 11th Circuit in September, which means I can get off Obamacare and have 1 year guaranteed of a steady income.
Wendi downplays her job as a clerk for a federal court judge as a means to get off Obamacare, but in reality, it's a very prestigious job to have. And it could protect you from local prosecution in the sense that state authorities may be cautious in prosecuting someone that works for a federal judge. Willie Meggs, who was the Leon County DA at the time, didn't want to arrest Katie McManua or the Adelsons because they said there was lack of evidence. Here we have an article from September 2016 where Willie Meggs is quoted about this. Probable cause affidavit seeking arrest of the former brother-in-law of slain Professor Dan Markel contained speculation but lacked enough evidence to bring charges. Let's look at this from Wendi's perspective and ask yourself this question. Were you protected because you were working for a federal judge for the past year? There's no way to really answer that question. But let's fast forward to September 30th, 2016. It's your last day working as a clerk for Judge Jordan. You say farewell to your colleagues. You thank the judge for the great opportunity. Maybe your colleagues take you out for drinks. Maybe they say, fuck that bitch, I know what you did last summer. But anyway, the next day, you wake up, it's raining crazy. So you sit on the couch, turn on the TV, and the moment it stops raining,
a new twist in the alleged murder for hire plot. Police in Florida arresting a single mom, accusing her of arranging the killing of a prominent Florida State law professor. ABC's Matt Gutman has the new details for us. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Robin. Authorities portray Catherine McManua as a kind of femme fatale in this case. Police say the Miami beauty linked Dan Markel.
they couldn't even wait till the next business day. Don't you think that plagues Wendi's mind?
The testimony you're about to give will be true. You may be seated.
What we do know about Wendi is that she's an immigration attorney. She has a couple 100,000 extra lying around. She secures work through her significant other, and she definitely doesn't want Dan Markel's parents around their grandchildren because she's hateful. So as an immigration attorney, she's going to make connections via philanthropy because she has this extra money. She secures work via her significant other, and she's going to work in a situation to where she's around the ad litem community.
Ma'am, please say and spell your name.
Wendi Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Where are you from, Ms. Adelson?
I'm originally from
Coral Springs,
Florida.
Broward County is important for where we're about to go next.
And where do you live now?
I currently live in Miami.
How are you employed?
Now kind of part-time. I do asylum work and I fundraise for nonprofit organizations.
That's philanthropy. Let's keep going. Quick refresher. Immigration attorney makes connections via philanthropy, secures work via significant other, just like she did with Dan Markel, and she's going to be part of the ad litem community, helping immigrant kids. Here's a press release from one of Wendy's schools talking about the job she got. What are the chances that they would have a Prius as the main photo in this article? Wendi Adelson has been named executive director of the Immigration Partnership and Coalition Fund, the Impact Fund. A Gates Cambridge scholar has been named executive director of an organization focused on raising funds to finance existing legal services for undocumented individuals with no criminal background in the U.S. It goes on to talk about how she worked for the federal judge and how she was a professor of law at FSU. I wanted to find a little bit more information about them, so I looked up their 990 tax form. As you can see, Wendi right here, and let's see how many dollars she's clocking. $0. Sometimes people that work for nonprofits don't draw a salary. I can't tell you why Wendi does not draw a salary or didn't that year, but there's another year that I looked up and she does. The nonprofit organization that Wendi works for is run by a man named Mike Fernandez. Mike Fernandez was also the founder and chairman of the Immigration Partnership and Coalition Fund. The Impact Fund fundraises to expand currently existing legal services and programs to help undocumented immigrants fight unjust deportation procedures and grant them a path to citizenship. Mike Fernandez wrote to Politico about Wendi Adelson, billionaire immigration crusader, employee innocent in murder for hire plot. Mike Fernandez told Politico via email that Wendi Adelson was vetted by a federal judge in a group called the Miami Foundation, and that Impact then did its own background check before we hired her. Mike Fernandez, a Florida billionaire and former GOP mega donor who crusades for the rights of undocumented immigrants, is rising to the defense of the woman who heads his immigration reform group by saying she had nothing to do with the sensational murder for hire plot that killed her ex-husband. Fernandez emailed his statement of support for Wendi Adelson after NBC's Dateline last week devoted a 2-hour investigative special. I mean, you get it. But you know Wendi is trying to leverage this. You know she's not just stumbling upon someone like this on accident. Anyway, Mike has a son. His name is George. And George, I don't know what you're thinking, man. Come on, bro. All the hours of Jeff Lacasse footage. Oh my. He's too far gone. But y'all tell me, is this a coincidence here? Wendi Adelson works for Mike Fernandez, a billionaire, and dates his son. There's no accident with that. That's not a coincidence. You think it's by coincidence that Wendi is dating George Fernandez, whose father is Mike Fernandez, and Wendy's employer, and a billionaire and a GOP mega donor, and she's represented by John Laurel? And John Laurel ain't cheap. You don't think she's dating George Fernandez? You saw the picture. You don't think she's dating him because his dad's a billionaire who can employ her and pay her lawyer fees, who's connected to the GOP because he's a donor? He didn't donate to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump's still the GOP, and John Laurel is his attorney. You think that's by accident? You don't think she's looking through all those connections to possibly get a commuted sentence or a pardon, if need be, through her attorney? And Donald Trump was the president when they got together, and Donald Trump's the president now. Like I told you, immigration attorney, connections via philanthropy, secures work via her significant other, ad litem for immigrant kids. Wait a second. Since Wendi worked for a federal judge, why not try to get close to a Second Circuit court judge? This is not about having a smoking gun. This is about timing optics. Some of you know I'm from Maryland, and I somewhat understand how judges are appointed, but I do know that each state in the U.S. has a different process. Before we go further, I have to explain how Florida Circuit Court judges are appointed. In Florida, when a circuit court judge retires or steps down, a structured process kicks in. The Judicial Nominating Commission, or JNC, takes applications and interviews candidates. After that, they send a short list of 3 to 6 names to the governor. The governor is required to choose from that short list. No outside picks are allowed. Once appointed, the new judge serves a 6-year term before facing re-election in a nonpartisan race. This process gives the governor influence, but the JNC ultimately controls who even makes it onto the list. On March 19th, 2019, Governor Ron DeSantis appointed Stephen Everett to the Second Circuit Court. Judge Everett was replacing Judge Karen Giebers, who in late 2018 announced that she would be retiring on April 27th, 2019. When Judge Karen Giebers wrote the then Governor Rick Scott about her retirement, she says, "Please accept my resignation as circuit judge in and for the Second Judicial Circuit of Florida to be effective April 27th, 2019, my 70th birthday." Why is this important? It's important because in Florida, you can't be a judge forever. At 70, you gotta pack it up. Judge Gievers was on the bench for 15 years. People knew she was turning 70 on April 27th. My point is that if you were one of the people who wanted her spot in the Second Circuit Court, you'd have to make your intentions known at least a year before her announcement. I've never spoken to anyone who follows this case that's had one bad thing to say about Judge Everett. I think this case would look very different if someone else were presiding over it. September of 2011, the Bar Children's Committee has an article about child trafficking. This project was co-authored by Wendi Adelson. The other person involved in this project, his name is Alan Abramowitz.
My name is Alan Abramowitz, and I am the Executive Director of the statewide Guardian Ad Litem program. The number of abused, abandoned, and neglected children coming into foster care is on the rise.
Trafficking, Guardian Ad Litem, foster care. These are all the things that Wendi is focused on, and she did that project with him in 2011, and he wants to be a judge in 2017 and in the Second Circuit. All right. Well, we don't know how cool Wendi and Alan are, but would it hurt if Wendi was cool with them and Alan became the judge that was presiding over the Dan Markel murder? What if Wendi somehow was able to get some influence in order to get him appointed? And people usually look out for other people when they get help trying to get where they need to go, not after they've already gotten there. You don't think Wendy's not going to be laser focused trying to find the right person to put Alan in position? She may have the person that works for the state of Florida, who's the exact same age as Wendi, who's also from Broward County and lives in Tallahassee. Andrew Gillum, the mayor of Tallahassee from 2014 to 2018. But Andrew's just the mayor. But he doesn't just want to be the mayor forever, though.
Are y'all ready to put Florida blue?
Yeah, you see it. Andrew's running for governor. And if Andrew becomes governor, he could appoint Allen to be the judge in Second Circuit Court. And Allen's on the list too. He's got a chance. He's got an interview at 9 o'clock. This could all just be a couple innocent selfies. That's all Wendi wanted. Just a couple pictures with the man that was going to be the first Black governor in Florida.
This race was another nail-biter last night. It took hours before Ron DeSantis was declared the winner. DeSantis edged out Andrew Gillum by less than 1% of the vote. Our senior political reporter Michael Putney is in the newsroom now with...
Now, they always say weird things happen on Friday the 13th, but Friday, March 13th, 2020, Andrew Gillum was one of those weird things.
Developing at noon, the police releasing evidence today from an overdose incident involving former candidate for Florida Governor Andrew Gillum.
And we're now getting a look inside the hotel room where they say it happened. Local 10 News reporter Laren Livingston is live in Miami Beach with the details. Laren.
Chrissy, Janice, police say back on March 13th, former gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum was so intoxicated here at the Mondrian South Beach Hotel that he could not even speak with officers. And as you mentioned, just this morning, Miami Beach police releasing body cam footage of their response to the hotel and that emergency call that night. Take a look at this. Much of the video inside of the hotel room was blurred because of privacy reasons, according to the police. But what we are able to see are police responding to that emergency call around 1 o'clock in the morning about a suspected drug overdose. Now, Gillum and 2 other men were inside the hotel room there, and police say one of those men, Aldo Mejias, went into the room earlier that night and found Gillum and another man, Travis Dyson, under the influence of a, quote, unknown substance. Dyson ultimately had to be taken to the hospital to be treated. Gillum, who'd reportedly been found vomiting in the bathroom there in that hotel room, was later allowed to leave the hotel and go home. Now, there are also photographs that police officers released to us, pics from inside that hotel room show a mess of a hotel room. We're talking stained pillowcases and sheets. There are pill bottles that have been noticeably seen there in those photographs. And police also removed ultimately what they suspected at the time to be 3 small bags of suspected crystal meth. Now, Andrew Gillum was the first Black nominee in a major party to run for Florida.
To kick off the pandemic with wild drugs and 2 male escorts.
Narrowly losing to now Governor Ron DeSantis back in 2018, and he claimed he was here in South Florida for a wedding that night and that he never used meth, and he ultimately apologized for that incident. He also later released a statement saying that he suffered from depression following the loss there to the governor, and that led to alcohol abuse, and he said that he would be entering rehab. We've also now reached out to the Miami Beach police just to see if what was initially suspected to be crystal meth was later actually, in fact, found to be crystal meth. We're still waiting to hear back from them on that, and we'll continue to pour over this video, these photographs, and bring you more right here on Local 10 and at local10.com. For now, we're live here in Miami Beach. Laren Livingston, Local 10 News.
Former Florida Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum pleaded not guilty today to 21 federal charges, including conspiracy, making false.
That Jay and I and our family have.
Andrew Gillum beat that case with the help of his attorney, David Oscar Marcus. Some of the firm's high-profile clients. Charles Adelson. Charlie gets arrested April 22nd, 2022. Andrew Gillum, July 21st, 2022. David Marcus withdrew from Charlie's case on May 9th. But at least we know that the interaction between Wendi and Andrew Gillum isn't so random when he has the same lawyer as her brother. 1 month before Katie and Sigfredo's trial, Wendi Adelson starts a nonprofit called the Immigrant Child Defense Corporation. So Wendi lists herself as the main person of this nonprofit, but who does she put as the VP? The guy that wanted to be a judge in 2019. But he still works for the state of Florida. And he works for the Second Circuit Court. And he's on Wendi's payroll. In Donna Adelson's probable cause affidavit, there's a list of federal agents and other people that they may or may not have testify. Now, in this probable cause affidavit, they have the locations that have video surveillance. And so I tracked all of them. And after Wendi drove past the crime scene, she drove to ABC Liquors on Thomasville Road. As you can see, ABC Liquors on the lower right-hand corner. Now, I'm gonna point out all the places nearby that have cameras and their field of vision based on where the cameras are. These are the buildings whose cameras have footage that the FBI was able to get. In red are the buildings that have cameras that the FBI got the footage from, and the purple is the path that Wendi would have taken if she went to ABC Liquors from Dan's house. In yellow is the field of vision for each of those buildings based on where the cameras are located. The 3 buildings that are closest to our point of view is 1940 Thomasville Road, 1930 Thomasville Road, which is ABC Liquors, and 1920 Thomasville Road. But the FBI doesn't put any footage, or they don't say that they got footage from that building. And what's weird is there's more cameras in that building than the other 3 combined. And that's because it's one of the Leon County Second Circuit Court Annex buildings. And guess whose office is on the 2nd floor in Suite 208?